A train carrying $40,000 in Depression-era cash vanished in 1933, and the railroad's response exposed why American freight costs what it does. The story everyone tells about the nickel plate road Paycar theft is straightforward. Desperate men, desperate times, a perfect crime. But that narrative misses the real mystery: how a single missing payroll shipment nearly collapsed a regional railroad's entire supply chain, and what that tells us about how costs actually move through transportation networks. The nickel plate road ran freight and passengers across the Midwest: Ohio, Indiana, Illinois. By 1933, it wasn't the most famous railroad, but it was essential. Hundreds of small towns, grain elevators, coal mines, and factories depended on it to move goods. The railroad employed thousands, and like all railroads then, it moved cash the way we move data today: constantly, predictably, and in high-value batches. On a specific run in October 1933, the Paycar, a specially fortified passenger car, left the railroad's main office carrying roughly $40,000. That's around $800,000 in today's money. It was headed to remote stations to pay workers. The car was guarded, locked, tracked. Then it stopped appearing at its scheduled destinations. Within hours, the railroad filed reports. Within days, newspapers were calling it a heist. Theories flew: bandits had stopped the train, forced the guards, and disappeared into the countryside. It was 1933, the height of the Depression. Outlaws like Dillinger and Floyd were real. A train robbery felt plausible, almost expected. But here's where the accepted story breaks. The railroad's own investigation found something different. There was no sign of forced entry, no witnesses to a violent stop, no bodies, no shootout. The Paycar had simply vanished, as if it had been deliberately removed from the schedule. What emerged over weeks was stranger. The Paycar had been diverted internally. A railroad employee, someone with access, someone trusted, had rerouted the car off the main line. It wasn't stolen by outsiders. It was disappeared by someone inside the system. The money was never recovered. The employee was never definitively identified. Now here's why this matters economically. The railroad's response wasn't to just absorb the loss. It couldn't. That $40,000 wasn't profit, it was working capital, the lifeblood of payroll. When it vanished, the railroad faced an immediate crisis. How do you pay workers at remote stations when your cash is gone? The railroad had to borrow against future revenues to cover the shortfall. That meant higher interest costs. Those costs got passed forward, not as a lump sum, but spread across every shipment, every ticket, every service. A grain farmer shipping wheat suddenly faced slightly higher transport fees. A factory paying to move coal paid a tiny bit more. But the real economic damage was deeper. The theft exposed a vulnerability in the railroad's internal controls. To fix it, the company had to hire auditors, install new security systems, and create redundant accounting checks. That infrastructure cost money, permanent money. Every year after, those costs stayed embedded in the operating budget. And it wasn't just this railroad. News of the theft spread. Other railroads realized their own Paycars might be vulnerable. They upgraded security too. The entire industry absorbed new costs. Those costs rippled outward through freight prices, ticket prices, and ultimately into the prices consumers paid for goods that moved by rail. There's more. The incident damaged the railroad's reputation. In the Depression, when trust was already fragile, knowing that internal theft could happen made investors nervous. The company's credit rating suffered slightly. Borrowing became more expensive. Again, that cost got pushed forward into operations. The Paycar theft also forced the railroad to rethink how it moved money entirely. They shifted from physical cash shipments to more frequent wire transfers through banks. That meant new relationships with financial institutions, new fees, new coordination overhead. The old system, simple, direct, predictable, had to be replaced. What we're really looking at is how a single disruption, one missing Paycar, created cascading costs across an entire system. The railroad didn't just lose $40,000. It lost the efficiency of its existing processes. It had to build new infrastructure. It had to pay more to borrow. It had to charge more to ship goods. And here's the part that connects to your world. This is exactly how supply chain costs form. A disruption happens: theft, sabotage, accident, fraud. The system responds by adding safeguards. Those safeguards cost money. And that money doesn't disappear. It gets distributed across every transaction downstream. The nickel plate road's Paycar was never found. The employee responsible was never publicly identified. But the economic aftermath was real and measurable. Freight costs rose. Operating margins tightened. The railroad's financial position weakened slightly, making it more vulnerable when the Depression deepened further. By the 1950s, the nickel plate road was absorbed into larger systems. It ceased operating independently. Whether the Paycar theft contributed to that decline is unknowable. The depression itself killed dozens of railroads. But the theft was a symptom of deeper vulnerabilities, trust breaking down, systems straining, costs rising faster than revenue. So when you pay for shipping today, when you see costs rising, when you wonder why moving goods seems to get more expensive every year, part of that is accumulated security infrastructure. Locks, audits, insurance, redundancy. We've built these systems because of lessons learned from events like the nickel plate road Paycar. And that's exactly why it costs what it does. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research. Subscribe for weekly deep dives into the hidden economics behind the systems you use every day. There's always a lost Paycar somewhere. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research.